The mace is getting a nerf. Let's see the best way to use them now and how this compares to my one-hit breeze cannon. Hello there, Ray here. They just resolved this bug report where mace falling damage is increased when you're using an elytra. Now I did a whole video about this crazy trick and how you can easily use it to one-hit the dragon, the wither, and the warden. So now that you can't use an elytra, what is the new easiest way to pull off these mega hits? And how does this compare to my instant kill breeze cannon? Now, even though you can't use the elytra to do the flying downwards to hit them, you can go ahead and switch out your elytra with a body piece and then just follow downwards right above your target and one hit bonk them on their head. Another great way you can get high up in the air is by using a Riptide Trident. You do need to start your launch from within water or when it's raining, but you can get quite high up in the air and come down and smack the player to one hit them. Even if the player has full enchantments and is netherite, you can instant kill them this way. Now, an unarmored player can be one hit just by using a breeze to launch yourself in the air, but if the player has full protection and netherite, then it takes 2 attempts. The next one involves using the mace to tap that like button. If your target's not moving, you can use scaffolding to get up pretty high without having to use too many blocks, and it's really easy to come in and remove it when you're done. So with the mace being nerfed and needing a little bit more of a setup in order to pull off a lot of these heavy hits, my breeze cannon, which can also one hit anything, is now more worth building up. The biggest difference between using the mace in my machine is that this machine is automatic and can constantly produce one hit kills without needing any player. So let's compare it with the mace in some requested situations. So first up, the Totem of Undying. Go ahead and blast the player as it's holding it. You can see it does break it, but the player survives. Let's go ahead and try it with multiple arrows coming down and hitting the player. You can see they kind of all hit at the same time and only one of them actually killed the player. So instead of having 2 arrows coming at the exact same time, if we put one up here, we put a harming arrow in just so it does a little bit more damage. And we can also turn that normal arrow into a poison one so we can poison the player, which should help reduce their health while they have regen and saturation. But first we'll hit the player with a whole bunch, break the totem, and then we'll hit him with the second arrow, which also comes from a power 5 bow, so it does a little bit more damage, and we can actually kill a player who has a totem. Compared with a Totem of Undying, where when you hit it with the mace, the player definitely survives it, as the mega hit is all put into the totem, and once broken, no more damage is done. But if you first do the mace attack and then come in and try to do a crit attack to kill him, it takes about 2 hits to take him out before the regen will help him out. But if they have full armor, then it becomes a lot harder to break their totem. Plus, it also means that they have some lovely armor to prevent you from easily hitting them afterwards. Plus, the regen's helping them, so your hits aren't doing very much. Next up, we have a dog with the dog armor on. And the dog only takes damage once the armor is completely broken. So with a single shot hit onto the dog, all that damage is going to be used to try to break the dog's armor. Because all the damage comes at once, it only breaks armor, so just like a Totem of Undying, a single hit doesn't kill it. So if you use poisonous arrows instead of normal arrows, you can see the dog does get poisoned. This will bring it down to very low health, but it won't actually kill it. So we can come in with a single arrow to break the armor off, but we can also give the dog poison, and we can hit it with a second arrow that also has flame, and now it has low health as well as it is on fire, and it will die. And a dog with armor is similar to a person with a totem. Once you break it off, then you can do a hit and kill the dog. But what if you use a shield? So I'm gonna go ahead and hold the shield straight up, because you have to hold the shield in the direction that you're being attacked. Arrows coming from above. You can see even though I held the shield above me, the arrow is still able to kill me. And the mace can kill people holding a shield if the player falls from high enough up. Getting resistance 4 from Turtle Master is no match for it either. And the mace can plow through it as long as you're high enough up. Click that subscribe button to be the first to see what crazy tricks I find next. So some of you were asking what would happen if we would come in using a skeleton. That way we would get infinite arrows to use inside of the one-hit machine. So that's exactly what I did. I put a skeleton sitting in a minecart up above and it's trying to shoot this iron golem down below. I also gave the skeleton a power 5 bow, which we'll take a look at in a bit. But when the arrows are getting shot out, what I have is a calibrated skulk sensor, and it's really close to where the arrows spawn in from the skeleton. So it can immediately hear that the skeleton has summoned an arrow. Then it'll put on power, and the power will be put into this redstone dust here. This dust will immediately push this piston here, which will immediately push this redstone block, and that will instantly close this trapdoor. and I was just barely able to catch the arrow using this trapdoor before it hit the iron golem down below. This was quite difficult because the iron golem could not be moved down any lower, otherwise the skeleton would no longer see it. And if the iron golem was any closer, despite the arrow being caught, it would still end up damaging the iron golem just because the game thought the arrow was moving so fast it would hit the iron golem. And you can even see this when you watch the trapdoor. Sometimes the arrow might even appear like it's going through the trapdoor, and then it will kind of bounce back up and end up on top of it. Then once the arrows are landing, I'm pushing them off to the side of here, and we're storing them in front of this piston. This is a piston which is hooked up with the rest of the machine, and will automatically send the arrows downwards to hit whatever we put down here. But only do this after it counts out a certain number of breeze wind shards and gets them stored up. But you might be wondering why we have some powdered snow in here. That's because without this powdered snow, you'll notice that the arrows are kind of spread out. And when they eventually do get pushed off of this ledge here, you would think all the arrows would get pushed into a single batch and fall all as a single group. But what actually happens is the arrows kind of have all different types of momentum coming from the skeleton. And even though they were sitting inside of this block here, it didn't remove that momentum, and they pick it up as soon as they are released again. So some of them move a little bit faster, and some move a little bit slower. And this is a problem because when the wind charges come up and hit up against this block here, any arrows that are below it are going to shove them downwards, but any arrows that are above it will then get shoved upwards. And when the arrows go upwards, they can end up clipping into this wall here and damaging our iron golem that is nearby. So to fix this problem, what we need to do is come in here and remove the momentum of the arrows while they're being sent out by the skeleton up here. So we make them go through this powdered snow here. That will remove their momentum. And then when they get pushed over here, we want them to also congregate as a single group. And another powdered snow helps us do this. So the next time the arrows get pushed, you can see they're all getting pushed as a single group into this powdered snow here. And when they fall as a single group as well, all with the same momentum, which makes it so we can perfectly time the wind charges to hit above them and damage anything that is below them. But using the skeleton to produce arrows has more benefits than just having infinite arrow source. By giving the skeleton a power 5 bow, the arrows that come out of it are going to be stronger than the normal arrows that just come from the dispenser. So here's my previous design where we can just automate it using a dispenser, which will just be a normal arrow. And a normal arrow won't do as much damage as a power one. And we go ahead and check this out. If I put in a fresh iron golem here, and I have the clock set to the same amount, 24 items, we can watch and see how much damage it does to this iron golem. So it gets hit by the arrow, and if we check its health, we can see it reduces its health by about half. Now if we come over here to the machine with the power 5 bow, have the same amount of items, and we hit this iron golem here with the same amount of wind charges. The only thing being different is that the arrows come from a power 5 bow. You can see that the iron golem can be instantly killed. So we can do twice as much damage using the same amount of wind charges. This means you can spend less time having the breeze store up wind charges and more time one-hitting mobs. You guys were also wondering if you could recharge the cannon faster by having multiple breezes. Now if you do put 2 breezes in here that are sitting in 2 different minecarts, and when we release this block here, they should both see this iron golem. But notice when they actually attack the iron golem, they attack at different times. And because of this, some of the wind charges get pushed to the side, but some of them just end up blowing up onto the actual piston in front. That's because they both see the iron golem at the same time, but they react to it at different times, and they're not completely synchronized. So this simple setup of getting faster wind charges in the cannon here won't work. What we could do is have 2 different setups that are pushing wind charges into the same area. But at that point, it'd probably be more complicated than you need it to be, and it would just be a lot easier to just have one breeze do its job in order to get the same results. You guys are also wondering what happens if you use a piercing arrow on the mobs down here. Can you hit multiple mobs at once? Well, I went ahead and designed this machine here. It comes in and can actually store piercing arrows. We can't just store them sitting on top of a block, because as soon as the arrows touch the block, the game will automatically remove their piercing ability. So when they do fall, they'll just be like a normal arrow. We need to keep the arrows completely suspended all the time, and that's why I got some bubble columns here. If I line myself over here in this corner, I can go ahead and shoot one down into there. And if you turn on hitboxes, you can see the bubble columns will catch it and push it upwards. So now the arrow will just sit here at the top, constantly trying to fall downwards. The bubble columns constantly keep it upwards. So after the counter has counted out enough wind charges that we're ready to hit them, we're going to go ahead and push the soul sand over So let the arrow fall downwards, and then it's going to get hit by the wind charges, and then come here and smuck all these iron golems. And you can see, despite all these iron golems being stacked on top of each other, the piercing went right through them and hit every single one of them. So you might be wondering, why don't we use a mob that holds a piercing crossbow to put in these arrows rather than using the player? Well, there's a good reason for that, and we'll take a look at that right after we see this piercing arrow hit all these golems once again. Here it's coming down, hit with the breeze, and bam! Ends up killing all 5 of them that it can reach, except for the 6th one, which can't be damaged because that's how piercing works. So there's only 2 mobs in the game which can actually use crossbows when they're holding them, and that is the piglin and the pillager. Now both piglins and pillagers can spawn in with enchanted crossbows that already have piercing on them. But how high the level of enchantment is on the crossbow is determined by what level the game uses in order to enchant their tools. So for these guys, it happens to be level 19. So if we use an enchantment calculator, we can calculate what type of enchantments these guys should get. So they can get up to piercing 3, but they cannot get level 4. But what if we just give them a piercing 4 crossbow? The problem is, even if you have a special pillager that could actually pick up items such as a crossbow, the pillager won't actually pick them up. So pillagers are out of question. So what about a piglin? Well, the piglin will pick up the crossbow, and once given, it will actually use it as well. But when a piglin uses a crossbow, just as a pillager, over time, the more it shoots, the more durability it will use up on the crossbow. And eventually the piglin will use up all its durability and will actually break it, just like a pillager. But even if you give the piglin your own crossbow, it will still break it over time. So in order to make this work, you would have to have the piglin up top, and then every time it broke a crossbow, you'd have to give it a new piercing 4 one. But it turns out there's even more problems. Since the piglin is shooting the arrows, they have to be piercing, so we'd have to store them here in a bubble column. But at the same time, we have to make sure the piglin is shooting at its target, being the wither skeleton. And it turns out the piglin doesn't even shoot consistently, so it's really hard to actually catch the arrow, perfectly time it, and then send it into the machine. And to avoid making it too complex, it's just so much easier to come in with the player and use their very own piercing 4 crossbow, sending it into this tube here. So with the last version, I showed you guys how it can launch a player up really high. Some of you guys wondering if it can launch ender pearls really far, and it can. So if we just go ahead and aim downwards, place an ender pearl into this bubble column here, and it'll keep it kind of right above the water here. Then the breeze charges will store up, and then we can launch the ender pearl off into this direction. And as long as you keep your render distance as well as simulation distance turned up, or you'd have to run like chunk loaders over there. Because these pearl cannons can shoot pearls really far, those chunks will be loaded and the pearl will fly, and it can also land and teleport you. And just like that, it teleports us out quite far actually, almost 500 blocks, just with 11 breeze wind charges. And now we're spectating the ender pearl, and let's see how far this pearl actually goes. I put in over a stack of items in the counter, so we should get quite a good blast. We're starting out near 0-0. There we go. Whee! I slowed down the game so you can see how the pearl is teleported to its new location every 1/20th of a second. Also, since I'm riding the pearl, the chunks are being loaded around me, so it won't reach unloaded chunks. So with just 2 minutes worth of breeze charges, we sent it over 2,000 blocks in the world. More complex machines in this playlist here. And if you enjoyed learning the newest things about the game, be sure to subscribe and consider sharing this videos with others. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you next one. Bye bye.